We've all known someone who always seems cheerful, the kind of person who walks into a room and changes the entire energy. They tell jokes during meetings, send thoughtful messages on your birthday, offer help before you even ask, and never seem to let life get to them. They're the reliable one, the strong one, the person everyone counts on to lighten the mood or carry the emotional weight of the group. They always say, "I'm fine," with a smile so convincing that most people never think to ask twice. To the outside world, they appear invincible, confident, energetic, grounded. But what if that smile is not a reflection of joy, but a cover for something else entirely? Behind that polished exterior, behind the effortless laugh and calm demeanor, there may live a story no one has heard. A story of loneliness, of pressure, of silent battles waged in the dark corners of the heart. Sometimes, those who shine the brightest on the outside are quietly breaking on the inside. Their brightness is not always a sign of light within, it is sometimes a performance. A skill they've perfected over years of learning that the world rewards happiness and punishes vulnerability. In a culture obsessed with positivity, we are conditioned to smile through pain, to push through sadness, to avoid making others uncomfortable with our truth. The smile becomes armor and mask we wear not because we're trying to deceive, but because we're trying to survive. It protects us from questions we're not ready to answer, from pity we didn't ask for, from the shame of feeling like we should be okay when we're not. Not every smile is a symbol of happiness. Some are silent cries for help. Some are shields worn by people who are exhausted from carrying the weight of others while having no one to lean on themselves. And some are simply habits-rehearsed expressions developed over years of suppressing pain because there was never a safe place to let it out. And perhaps the hardest part is this: those who suffer behind the smile are often the ones who never let it show. They've been strong for so long that even when they're collapsing inside, they still show up, still say, "Don't worry about me," but just because someone smiles doesn't mean they're okay. Joy isn't always loud, and neither is suffering. Sometimes what looks like strength is actually quiet desperation. Sometimes the most beautiful smiles are born from the deepest pain. So the next time you see someone who always seems okay, ask yourself, when was the last time someone truly asked them how they're doing and really listened? When smiling becomes an emotional mask, why does someone who's in pain say, "I'm okay," when they're anything but? Why would a person who feels like they're falling apart still show up with a smile on their face and laughter in their voice? It's easy to assume they're being dishonest or dramatic, but the truth is far more complicated and far more human. It's not because they're fake. It's because at some point in their life, they were taught directly or silently that their pain was inconvenient, that their suffering made other people uncomfortable, that expressing real emotions would make them too much to love, too difficult to deal with, or too fragile to respect. Maybe they cried as a child and were told, "Stop being so sensitive." Maybe they reached out for comfort only to be met with silence. Maybe they opened up once and were mocked, judged, or ignored. So they learned, they adapted. They put on a smile not because they're trying to deceive the world, but because they've learned that the world is not always kind to those who are honest about their pain. They learned that smiling was safer than explaining, that "I'm okay" was easier than "I'm drowning," and "I don't know how to ask for help." Over time, the smile becomes more than a habit. It becomes a survival mechanism, a form of emotional camouflage, a way to move through the world without constantly justifying your pain to people who may not care, or worse, who may use it against you. Whether due to cultural expectations, rigid family dynamics, or the deep scars of personal trauma, many people grow up believing that vulnerability is dangerous. To be taken seriously, they must first appear strong. To be accepted, they must first be palatable. That to be loved, they must never show how deeply they feel. And so the smile hardens into a mask. A beautiful, believable mask that says, "I'm fine," even when the soul behind it is unraveling. And what's heartbreaking is this: people begin to believe that their pain is not worth sharing unless it's neatly packaged, unless it can be turned into a lesson or an inspirational quote. So they hold it in. They become experts at emotional repression. They don't cry in public. They laugh louder. They work harder. They become the person everyone turns to while they themselves have no one to turn to. This isn't deception, it's defense. These emotional masks are not worn out of vanity or manipulation, but out of fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being seen too deeply. Fear of being abandoned by those who claim to care. Because in a world that only claps for strength, softness becomes something you hide. So if you ever see someone who always seems okay, who never complains, who always supports others but never talks about themselves, don't assume they're not hurting. Sometimes the brightest smile hides the deepest ache. And sometimes the ones who laugh the loudest are the ones who most need someone to say, "You don't have to pretend with me." Signs of smiling depression. Smiling depression is one of the most insidious and dangerous emotional states, precisely because it is so easy to miss. Unlike traditional images of depression marked by visible withdrawal, sadness, or lethargy, those who suffer from smiling depression may appear to be living a perfectly normal, even enviable life on the outside. They might be holding down a steady job, raising a family, maintaining social relationships, or achieving their goals with apparent ease and grace. To outsiders, they seem successful, dependable, and positive. But behind the smiles, laughter, and seemingly boundless energy, a quiet storm is raging inside. This kind of depression is often called hidden or high-functioning depression because it camouflages itself so well. The person wearing this mask has learned to perform emotional acrobatics balancing the demands of everyday life while their inner world feels hollow, exhausted, and painfully lonely. They have mastered the ability to fake it until they make it. But the truth is, they are barely holding themselves together. One of the most confusing things about smiling depression is how subtle the signs can be. They rarely speak openly about their feelings. When the topic turns to their emotional well-being, they might deflect, change the subject, or use humor to steer the conversation away from themselves. Compliments are often brushed off with a laugh or a quick, "I'm fine," though internally, they feel unworthy of praise or connection. They often appear to be busy, not because they are enjoying the hustle, but because staying active helps them avoid facing the painful emptiness that lurks beneath their cheerful exterior. The phrases they use are equally telling and heartbreaking. "I'm just tired. Other people have it worse. I'm used to feeling this way." Or, "I don't want to bother anyone with my problems." These expressions, while sounding casual or even dismissive, are cries for help that are cloaked in self-effacement. They reflect a deep reluctance to burden others, a pervasive feeling of isolation, and a fear of being seen as weak or vulnerable. The danger of smiling depression lies in its invisibility. Because these individuals continue to function and often excel in many areas of life, their suffering can go unnoticed by family, friends, and even healthcare providers. The world sees the smile and assumes everything is fine, so the silent pain remains unacknowledged and untreated. This invisibility can lead to devastating consequences: emotional exhaustion, a worsening of symptoms, and, in worst cases, thoughts of self-harm or suicide. What makes smiling depression particularly tragic is the double burden these individuals carry. They not only struggle internally with their depression, but they also feel pressured to maintain a facade of happiness and strength. Society's unrealistic expectations about positivity and resilience only deepen their sense of alienation. They feel trapped in a cycle where showing their true feelings seems impossible without risking judgment, misunderstanding, or rejection. Understanding smiling depression means learning to look beyond the surface, to recognize that a smile is not always a sign of happiness. It means listening carefully to what someone says and what they don't say. It means noticing when a person frequently dismisses their own feelings or seems exhausted despite their energetic exterior. It means offering gentle, non-judgmental support and reminding those who suffer that it is okay to not be okay. If you know someone who seems to be thriving on the outside but may be struggling within, the most powerful thing you can do is simply be present. Show that you are willing to listen without rushing to fix or judge. Encourage openness by creating a safe space for vulnerability. And if you yourself feel like you are wearing a mask of happiness while hurting inside, know that you are not alone, and that reaching out for help is a courageous first step toward healing. Cultural pressures, when society demands constant strength. From the very beginning of our lives, most of us are subtly but powerfully trained to suppress our discomfort and present a carefully curated version of ourselves to the outside world. This training starts early, within the family, school, and social environments, where the norms about how we should express emotions are deeply ingrained. Boys, for instance, often hear phrases like, "Be tough, man up," or "Don't be a crybaby." These simple words carry a heavy burden. The message that showing sadness or vulnerability is unacceptable, a sign of weakness or failure. Boys are encouraged to bury their pain, to build emotional armor, and to perform strength, even when they are hurting deeply inside. Girls face their own set of expectations, equally restrictive but different in nature. They are taught to be pleasant, agreeable, and emotionally generous, to nurture, to comfort, and to make others feel comfortable. Yet this often comes at the cost of ignoring or minimizing their own feelings of hurt or frustration. The unspoken rule is to maintain harmony and smile through pain. Admitting sadness or dissatisfaction is often seen as disrupting the peace or burdening others. Over time, this leads many girls and women to become experts at emotional labor, masking their own struggles behind a facade of kindness and composure. These lessons are not isolated to families, but are echoed by wider cultural and societal norms. In many cultures around the world, showing weakness, whether it's through tears, anger, or despair, is viewed not just as unfortunate, but as a personal failure. It threatens the image of strength and resilience that society idolizes. There is a pervasive belief that emotional suffering is something to be endured silently, something that should never be aired in public. To complain or seek help is often met with skepticism, dismissal, or even shame. As a result, generation after generation grows up internalizing the idea that their pain is inconvenient at best, shameful at worst. They learn that the right way to deal with difficult emotions is to hide them, to smile through them, to keep moving forward no matter how heavy the burden feels inside. This social expectation is powerful. It shapes the way we see ourselves and the world. We come to believe that our feelings must be controlled, polished, and presented as acceptable. The smile then becomes less about genuine joy and more about fulfilling a societal contract, a mask that says, "I am fine," even when we are anything but. This pressure to maintain an image of constant strength becomes deeply internalized. Even in moments of solitude, when no one else is watching, the voice inside reminds us that we should be positive, strong, and cheerful. There can be a harsh inner critic whispering, "You're not doing enough," or "You're too negative." This self-imposed demand to be relentlessly upbeat creates a profound emotional isolation. The stronger and more composed we act in public, the harder it becomes to admit, even to ourselves, that we are struggling. Vulnerability feels dangerous because once exposed, it risks rejection or judgment. This cultural conditioning to hide pain behind smiles is more than just a social inconvenience. It can have serious consequences for mental health. When emotional expression is discouraged, feelings don't disappear, they accumulate and fester. Without outlets for honest expression and support, people can feel trapped in a cycle of loneliness, shame, and exhaustion. The need to appear okay can prevent them from seeking help or connecting authentically with others. Over time, this disconnect from genuine emotions weakens the sense of self and the ability to cope with life's challenges in healthy ways. Recognizing this cultural conditioning is a crucial step toward healing. It invites us to question the norms we have absorbed and to create new, kinder ways of relating to ourselves and others. It means learning that true strength lies not in hiding our pain, but in facing it with courage and compassion. It means making space for all emotions, joy and sorrow, strength and vulnerability to coexist without judgment. By doing so, we begin to dismantle the emotional isolation that many live with and move toward a more authentic, connected, and compassionate way of being. The dangerous cost of repressed emotions. What happens when we suppress our true feelings for too long? Over time, the weight of those repressed emotions becomes unbearable. The cost is subtle but devastating. Emotionally, we disconnect from ourselves. We begin to live on autopilot, doing what's expected, not what feels true. We may develop chronic anxiety, insomnia, or physical symptoms that have no medical explanation. Spiritually, we lose our sense of meaning and purpose. Life feels flat, colorless, mechanical. And socially, we feel unseen even by those closest to us. Because we've taught others that we're always fine, they stop asking. The world continues to expect strength from us, even as we quietly fall apart. Some people turn to harmful coping strategies, overworking, overeating, isolating, or self-harm. In the darkest moments, some may wonder if life is worth continuing. Repression doesn't make pain disappear. It buries it deeper where it festers quietly until one day it erupts. How to truly see and support each other. The first step to healing this epidemic of emotional masking is to cultivate deeper presence for ourselves and for others. When you ask someone how they are, look into their eyes. Listen not just to their words, but to what's left unsaid. If someone withdraws or acts out of character, don't assume they're being dramatic. Consider what pain might be hiding beneath. Offer space. Offer warmth. Offer patience. Often, the best support isn't advice, but presence. And if you're the one wearing the mask, know that you don't need to keep pretending. Find one person you trust and say one honest thing. Start small. Healing begins with truth, not perfection. Being honest about your feelings doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. We are not here to impress each other. We are here to understand each other. The most healing conversations are rarely loud. They begin in stillness, in a soft voice, me too. Healing begins with self-recognition. Before we can heal, we must first acknowledge that something hurts. This sounds simple, but for many, it's the hardest step. We spent so long being fine that we don't know how to be anything else, but healing doesn't require dramatic change. It begins with honesty. It begins with sitting quietly and asking, what am I feeling, really? It begins with permission to be tired, to cry, to cancel plans, to say no. Emotional freedom is not about never being sad. It's about not being ashamed of your sadness. When you allow yourself to feel, you begin to reconnect with your truth. You begin to take the mask off not all at once, but gradually. And in doing so, you create space for others to do the same. Healing is not a destination. It's a daily practice of showing up imperfect, vulnerable, and real. Conclusion: look beyond the smile. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more honest ones. If someone you know always seems okay, check on them anyway. If someone always makes you laugh, ask them how they're really doing. If you are that person, the strong one, the cheerful one, the listener, please know you deserve support too. Your needs matter. Your tears are valid. Your emotions do not make you a burden. They make you beautifully human. And if today your smile feels like a mask, know this: you don't have to wear it forever. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to be messy. You are allowed to be seen not just for your strength, but for your softness. Beneath the smile is a real person. And that real person is worthy of love just as they are. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.